Pinterest impressions and repins are great and all, but is it really worth the time and energy if no one is clicking over to your website and taking action after they see the pin? I would say not. So today on the podcast, I have the lovely Vanessa Kynes, and she is teaching us how to leverage traffic from Pinterest to actually get people to book our services and buy our products on our website. So we're making that website Pinterest connection because I don't want you guys to spend tons of energy on anything in your business if we can't make it get you actual results. So that's what this episode's all about. And if you're new to Pinterest, you're not really using it for your business yet, do not worry. This episode has plenty for you too. We talk about many of the basics like setting up your profile, board creation, and creating pins themselves. So I learned a lot from this episode, and I know you will too. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. Welcome back to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast, you guys. We've got another interview this week, and I'm so excited. I hope you're enjoying these guest expert interviews we've started adding in. I know I'm loving them. So today is an amazing one. I'm interviewing Vanessa Kynes, who is seriously a Pinterest genius. She lives in Birmingham, Alabama, with her husband and 3 daughters, and she is a Pinterest strategist. And fun thing, she actually homeschools all 3 of her daughters. So be sure to stay till the end where we talk about her quick advice for time management while doing something like homeschooling or just running a family and also a business. I really love what she said there. I'm like, can we have you on again to just talk about that? Because it was seriously really good. So she has that stuff going with her family. Again, she's in Birmingham, Alabama, and she's worked with clients who've had over 10 million views on Pinterest, and then also people just starting out. So she really knows what strategies work no matter where you are in your Pinterest strategy or in your business in general. And she's here to share them with you today. So I want to say first too, before we play this interview, a couple of things. One, it's typically easy to understand why we should use something like Instagram or Facebook in our businesses, right? Like I know you guys love the content we put on the show about Instagram, for example, but many businesses are still ignoring Pinterest. So I question, are you ignoring Pinterest? Are you not really giving it the attention it deserves? Before I play the interview, I want to tell you guys like some of the results I've had with Pinterest. So in the last 30 days, so I'm literally just looking at that analytic in my Google Analytics, which we're going to talk about on the show, Pinterest has accounted for 72% of all of my social traffic to the website. So Pinterest is defining social traffic as like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, and some other ones as well. But for me, Pinterest is 72%. So I'm getting more traffic to my website than I do from Facebook or from Instagram. And people who come to my website from Pinterest are buying. They're filling out the contact form. And I know they came from Pinterest because they put that in the "where did you find me" question, and they're booking me. So I want to just say this is a thing. It's a strategy that works really well. And Vanessa and I are talking through a lot of great strategies here. And I think it's time that you make Pinterest work for you too, if you haven't put the energy and effort into using this platform yet. And another thing too, I want to throw in there is that Pinterest really helps with SEO rankings too on Google and other search engines. So you guys know I'm all about SEO strategy, and Pinterest is part of my SEO strategy, which again, we're going to talk about in the episode. We also mentioned the tool Tailwind. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I want to give you a couple things to remember as you listen to our conversation. But we talk about Tailwind, which is a Pinterest scheduler that Vanessa and I both use. And in the show notes, there will be a link for you to get a free month of Tailwind Premium to try it out. So it's basically a $15 credit towards like the premium version of Tailwind for 1 month free. So that's $15 credit from me to you. So be sure to try that if you're like, oh, this Tailwind thing thing, sounds great. Or if you want to try the non-free version of it. So I seriously would not be doing Pinterest without Tailwind personally, because it really does take out like the monotony and time spent every day doing it. It's something I can like plan and then forget. Okay. So without further ado, you guys, here is Vanessa Kynes, and we're talking about ways to book clients from Pinterest. Vanessa, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. I actually wanted to be on this show for a long time, so I'm so glad. And actually, I think I emailed you and said, hey, or Instagram, like, hey, would you be interested? And you were like, I was just thinking about you today. So it worked out. It was meant to be.
And that's something I was going to say. It's so fun because you've been recommended a couple times as a guest, like people filling out the contact form, the podcast page, and saying you, and then also Pinterest in general. So this is like a long time coming. So everyone, you are about to hear from someone who's seriously a Pinterest expert. And Vanessa and I met at Show It's United conference last year, and she gave a 5-minute fuel. That is what it sounds like of like, I'm so curious how that was for you, but like you are up there for 5 minutes. You literally just have 5 minutes in front of everyone at the whole conference to talk on one topic. And you talked about Pinterest, and it was so amazing. So I know you know all the things.
Yeah, doing a 5-minute fuel. So I did a long breakout session too, but I was like, how in the world can I condense Pinterest into 5 minutes? So I went the like storytelling route. It was more just to connect with people and get them thinking about Pinterest just broadly. So it was scary, but I did it.
You stuck within 5 minutes too, which was impressive. I know that's probably like, it could take longer when you're like up there, you know? Yeah. Okay. So you guys were talking about Pinterest today, as you saw on the topic, but before we talk about that, like diving into all the strategy, I'd love for you to tell everyone just like who you are and what you do in your business and that kind of stuff in case they don't know you.
Okay, great. So I'm Vanessa Kynes. I help creative small businesses craft traffic-generating Pinterest marketing strategies. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I am a homeschooling mama to 3 small children, all girls. So yeah, I just try to make it work with our business. I love that it's all online. We've moved a lot, and I'm just really passionate about creating a marketing platform or marketing system that can be automated, because that's really important in my life. And I'm sure many of your listeners can really relate with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So like, I'm assuming, which might be a bad assumption, but that most people listening are using Pinterest. So we're going to kind of start with that in mind of like, you might be already using it. Maybe you're not putting that much emphasis on it. Like maybe you don't even have a business profile, which I know is something you're super like, we need to have a business profile. But like, let's start with why Pinterest. Like when everyone, you know, it's easy for us to see like why we should use Facebook or why we should use Instagram, but like why Pinterest? Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravy.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravy.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
Yeah. So Instagram and Facebook, I always like to think they require you to show up live, especially when you think about Instagram stories. You need to get on. I mean, you don't need to. Everybody can have different philosophy. But if you want to put all your eggs in those baskets, you have to show up consistently. You have to come up with captions to write. You have to have everything fresh. So if you post about something on your Instagram profile, in 2 weeks, it's buried. Nobody's going to know about it, right? Pinterest, and conversely, I would say, even to go with that, search engine traffic, YouTube and Google, has your content living in an evergreen strategy. So people can discover your pins long after you posted that blog post. And I would say that if you're using Pinterest strategically, typically 80% of your traffic is going to come from 20% of your posts that might have been written the last couple of years. So I think it's just a really important strategy to have when you want to go on vacation, or you are building up to something else and you don't want to focus on necessarily live marketing. So it's a really important part of your kind of solid content marketing strategy.
Yeah, I love all that and totally agree. And I love, like, I know you know this from us talking about it, but like Pinterest is a huge traffic source for my business, which I'm so grateful for. And I love it to like use to find new things as well. But it's also like you just said, like a lot of it's old pins that like I might have not even thought were like going to be that much like longevity. Like even back when I had like a different business name, some of those are like still bringing traffic to the new thing, which is just so awesome. So thinking too about like we said, of talking about turning the traffic into clients, because just having people saving things and then never clicking to your website is obviously going to be a lot less useful to actually be making money from the efforts we're putting in on Pinterest. So I know you have some tips for us on like how we can take the traffic and then make it into actual people buying. Can you like start sharing those?
Yeah, I also too, like I'll
Yeah.
share, but I want to hear from you as well, because it sounds like you mentioned you're using Pinterest. You're obviously a service-based business with a product-based element as well. But the first step really is you have to optimize your Pinterest profile. So you mentioned in the beginning of the episode that a lot of people are using Pinterest, maybe just personally for recipes. You haven't converted to a business account. You really need to have a business account. It's required in the terms of service to have a business account. And what you're basically doing when optimizing your profile is you're kind of developing your core keywords. So for you as a web designer, your core keywords are going to be like branding strategy. And because you make show it templates, show it website templates, and website designer and female entrepreneurs. Like I can just think of a few core keywords that you want to be implementing in your strategy, like your Pinterest profile name and your board names and things like that. So that would be step number one, because until we get that keyword strategy down, we're really not going to attract ideal clients.
Well, with that first one of
Uh-huh.
optimizing and keywords and stuff, how, if someone's like, how do I have no idea what my keywords are? What are some ways they can figure that out?
Yeah. Okay. A couple ways is I think you need to start with primarily what you do. So if you're
Okay.
a wedding photographer, then pop in wedding photography or even wedding venue. I usually recommend that for photographers that you really focus on your location. So
Mm,
let's say Nashville,
yeah.
wedding venues, Nashville wedding photographer. And then I always like to add some more words. When you pop those into the Pinterest profile, you'll get all these little boxes below. Those are sub keywords. Let's build them up. So say you specialize in light and airy, or specialize in fine art photography, or maybe you do elopements. Start to build out that keyword rank. I like to store it in Trello doc. You could do that in like a Google Doc. So these are like your core keywords that you're going to start with. I know you mentioned web designers. We talked about that, but like enter in what you think people might be searching and start collecting those keywords. You can also you can look at your competitors and see what they're doing, but then also think about Google. Google has all those auto populations, or you can use a free SEO tool like Ubersuggest and really start figuring out like what are people's search intent when they're approaching the Pinterest platform.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. And yeah, that's a good point too with photographers of like going, when we're thinking about actually booking clients from it, of like the importance of going location
Yes.
versus just wedding photography. Because if you're in Nashville and someone in Colorado loves your photo and saves it, that means nothing if they're not going to book you in Nashville for an event. So, okay, I really love that. So first thing is optimizing Pinterest profile, knowing your keywords, making it actually a business profile. On that note too, do you have any tips on like when we think about optimizing it, like the bio and photo and anything like that we should be doing?
Yeah, so I typically recommend the photo be an image of you and maybe one that, I mean, this isn't 100% necessary, but you could use the same photo you're using on other platforms so that there's just continuity there. It's just much easier to recognize a face than it is a logo. So that's my first tip. For sure, make sure you have your location on there, specifically if you're a location-based business and you book people locally. And then also we talked about those core keywords, implementing those keywords into your profile. So for example, Nashville wedding photographer who specializes in fine art photography, capturing your candid moments, let's say. So in that profile, we have those main keywords like Nashville wedding photographer, fine art photography. And if you want specifically for service-based businesses, you could pop in a link to your lead magnet. It won't be clickable, but it just, if someone lands on your profile, it's just a great, easy way to kind of get them quickly to your website to potentially download your lead generator.
Yeah, with the lead magnet, you're saying it won't be clickable because you'd be putting that in the bio, not in the URL slot.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like those tips. And I agree about that. I need to look at that for me of like putting a lead magnet in because I don't think I have that. I just have like my main link. Another question I have for you, thinking about the profile still. So I know this is how I do it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way. But instead of it just being like Elizabeth McCravy, it's Elizabeth McCravy dash, I think it says show it website templates and business strategy. Would you suggest doing that or that needs to go in the bio?
Yeah, for sure. So you mean like in your name. So
yeah, it's like, that's my name.
Bar. So mine used to be Vanessa Kynes Pipe Bar, the little line, Pinterest marketing strategy, but Pinterest won't let me use the name Pinterest. So it just says marketing tips. But yeah, you could have National Wedding Photographer. You could have Show It Website Designer for sure. Definitely do that. I do want to highlight though, we're focusing a lot on the profile. 80% of people will only discover you through search and they will never see your profile. So don't stress about it. It's not something that you need to like put tons of effort into. But what we're doing by putting those keywords in there is more important that we're kind of communicating to Pinterest. It's like we're dating them. We need to have a dating profile. They need to know what we like and what we do and who we are until our content gets established. So it's important for you to do that in the beginning to make sure that Pinterest knows what you're about.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Taking the pressure off there. Okay. So we focused on that one. So that's all of you guys. That's so many great tips for optimizing the profile. Okay. Now what's another tip for making sure we're booking clients through Pinterest?
So real quickly, I would say creating content. I'm sure you talk about this. That's relevant. So Pinterest is a search engine. It's a visual search engine, but you want to create helpful content. So think about the types of questions you're most commonly asked. So for you, what do you think that would be? Like, what are the most common questions you're asked about?
Yeah. I mean, I know like one question would be like, why show it? Which I have blog posts and a whole page around that. And I know that's something that gets like good clicks over from Pinterest of like show it versus WordPress versus Squarespace and things like that. Another one would be like examples of templates and use. I'm thinking specifically about templates right now, but those would be two I would think of like, how does this look when it's not just on like in the version you made it?
Right. I love that. Okay. So why should you choose show it? Could be a pin that you create and then you educate on your website. You're creating relevant content and it's super relevant for you because what you're hoping to lead people to do is likely purchase your templates. So if you just had something like why I love email marketing, great. But if you don't have a product, and that's still fine to do. But if you can point people to the type of content that you sell or service you provide on Pinterest and solve a solution for them or a problem that they have and provide a solution and develop that know, like, trust. If you just save your templates to your website, and that's fine to do, but you don't educate on them at all, it's unlikely that someone's going to trust you to invest $1,000 or whatever your templates cost. So let's educate them and warm them up and get them trusting you that you're going to help them get the website they want.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So creating content to develop know, like, trust, and then pinning the content. And that's something too, like the whole content creation thing that helps in every way, even besides just Pinterest. By creating great blog content, you can put it on Pinterest. You can have the possibility of ranking on Google. It will just literally live on your blog for like the potential client who is exploring your services and they explores a blog post and all that kind of stuff. Any other thoughts on the content creation side?
Yeah, so in those blog posts, I'm sure talk about this. You want to optimize them to get people to your shop page or to your services page. So make sure you have, I like to have graphics that are like clickable, or buttons and call to actions that encourage people to visit this, because you assume that they know how to get there, but they may not. And honestly, let's make it easy for them. They might be on mobile. Most Pinterest traffic is mobile. Let's make it easy for them to get to that page. So that's just simply graphics or buttons that you insert into the blog post that link somewhere else, whether that's your shop page for your services.
I love that. And that's also a good SEO strategy of using like inbound and outbound links. It shows like relevancy within it, that you have other content that you're linking out to. So that's really good. And that is something I think people forget about, of like, you can hyperlink text even just within the blog post to like, here's how to work with me. Here's this other relevant thing. Here's the template, all of that. Okay. I love that. Okay. What's another tip you have for us?
I really like having, because Pinterest is such a cold traffic, meaning people may have never heard of you before. I really recommend that you have like a FAQ page on what it's like to work with you. Because again, we want to warm them up. We want to take them from just a complete stranger to a follower or fan. And so make sure, and this is more on the web design side, not so much on the Pinterest side, but we want to make them work together, that you just make it easy for someone to fall in love with you and your work.
Okay. Yeah. So are we pinning to that page, or is it just a page on the website someone will find from Pinterest?
What I'm recommending is that you have that page on your website, so that when people land on your blog post or your shop page, or you're pinning your templates, for example, that they have like another place to kind of build that trust.
Okay. That's a really good one. Oh, what's another one? I know you have a couple on here.
Okay, so I love this one because I do have a course. I just introduced Pinterest templates, but for the most part, my goal is to get people on my email list, for whatever reason, that's really important. So I have a landing page that, talks about the lead generator, which is this Pinterest startup guide, what it provides, who I am, a little bit of a profile. So every single blog post that I have has a graphic on it that says something here for the Pinterest tips, download my free guide, whatever. And then they can click over to that landing page, because again, we just only have visitors a short amount of time when they land on our website. And by getting them on your email list, you're going to be able to reach out to them again and kind of retain some of that traffic that could be more bouncy. Pinterest being colder people. So really valuable way to get them back to your website.
Okay. Yeah, I really love it. And thinking about that with like what you just said of Pinterest people being bouncy, what are your thoughts on like, I could have a pin that does well because people are clicking to expand it or saving it, but people never click the link. Like, what are some ways we can make people click to our website from it versus just being like, oh, that's a lovely photo, I'm going to save it to my inspiration board?
Yeah, well, and I think that this comes down to a lot of different variations, but the keyword aspect is important. So you mentioned earlier that if someone's in Colorado and they discover a Nashville photography pin, but doesn't have the word Nashville in it, let's just say it's just a beautiful picture in front of the Batman building in Nashville. Because we haven't targeted that person specifically, they're more likely to save it, right? So by using relevant local keywords, we're going to attract people who are looking specifically for that particular location. But also, probably I wouldn't recommend this as much for photography unless you're doing education posts. But for service-based businesses, I have sometimes I'll put a button on the pin, but you just feel like you have to click on, right? Or a text overlay on the pin, 3 tips for XYZ. So obviously you're not revealing those tips until they click through. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can use that. Video pins, you can on Canva, you can do little they're called stickers, but they're essentially just GIFs that, move. So you could have a little arrow that kind of swirls out and actually clicks. There's all different psychological ways to encourage people to click through.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So you're saying too, like with the text overlay, do you think pins, I know it's going to vary by industry, but like let's say it's for a service-based business and this is a blog about their service, what kind of image would you suggest they do for the pin?
Yeah, so for service-based, you're basically proving your work through words. So for photography, I don't typically recommend putting text overlay on your like real wedding. So that's the niche side. Anything that's super visual, like home decor, you can have both, right? But for service-based, I make multiple pins per blog post. So that's a strategy that Pinterest themselves recommend. So you could have like a solid background that's really simple that has text overlay, like 3 tips for using Pinterest to grow your email list. But then sometimes I'll incorporate stock imagery in the background. I'll create like different variations, including a video pin, because again, we want to make sure that people know what is going to be delivered behind the pin. We want to make sure we're using font that's easy to read, and that we're using compelling copy. It doesn't have to be super complicated on what we're going to provide. So like I mentioned, people love number lists, like 3, 4, 5, whatever it happens to be. They love knowing how I grew or how to XYZ. So think about what solution you're going to be helping them out with when you're creating those graphics.
Okay. I love that. And I love the multiple pins per post. So we in my business, my podcast manager, who's also a designer, she makes all of our pins now, which I love, but she does like about 5 per podcast episode. And it's so interesting seeing like which ones do better than others. And there has like, we've started to see like there's a style that we're doing that tends to get the most saves and clicks versus some of the other ones. But yeah, definitely for podcasts and blogs, putting text on it makes a lot of sense. And then with that, like, so with the text on it, should we make the pin title and description match what it says on it, or should it be different? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, okay, Pinterest can read the text on the pin, so they can do that, but they don't have to be the same. And I think there's different copy, like, for example, sleazy, the word sleazy, like how to sell without being sleazy. It's unlikely that someone's usually using the word sleazy in the keyword. They might be, but in the keyword search, but we can put it on the graphic because it's compelling to see how to make sales without feeling sleazy. But in the pin description and in the pin title, sleazy may not be the most valuable search term. So we can keep them different, like using more power words actually on the text overlay to make it more compelling to click, but not as necessary in the Pinterest description because that's where people are basically just discovering it in search, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I love that tip because that's so true that no one is typing in like how to be not sleazy, but then that will make you click. And I've noticed that too with my pins of like, especially for pins of like websites I've done specifically that might have a little text on it and say like it's a show it template or something. For the title and description, I'm using things like feminine website templates, which I might not even use to describe it necessarily on my own, but then I know that's something that like is a keyword people search.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do for sure, or minimal or clean or modern. And obviously, if you're not designing that style, like maybe you do bright, bold, and colorful, which I know you have a lot of bright and bold. And
yeah,
so,
I use that phrase too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to differentiate your templates, which there are a lot of templates on the Pinterest platform that will differentiate it from people looking for that style over, let's say, muted or modern and black and white. Not that yours are modern, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. I have another question for you and this is like I'm so like curious about this for myself, but like Pinterest has so many analytics, right? Mm-hmm. Which ones should we pay attention to most, or like, are they all important? Just all.
Yeah. So first of all, I do recommend that you get comfortable with Google Analytics more than Pinterest Analytics, because I want to see which blog posts, and you can set up goals, which is not complicated to do, but you can set up goals to see, hey, which blog post or which website landing pages in general are leading to my email list, whatever you define your goal to be, right? So that's important for me to know because that helps me understand what content is really performing for me. But in terms of Pinterest Analytics, impressions is the default. So you typically see impressions come up. I primarily look at link clicks, which I can get that data. And sometimes it doesn't match, guys. Like sometimes you'll see Pinterest clicks higher than on Google Analytics. And that's partly because someone could click on Google or on Pinterest and it doesn't completely load, and maybe they just swipe away before Google Analytics registers. So keep that in mind. Sometimes there's a discrepancy. Saves are somewhat important to me because they tell me that there's engagement there. There will always be people who are in the like search, just kind of window shopping mode, and the people who are ready to take action. But those are the two that I typically look at, are impressions, just mostly because it tells me like, okay, the search is functioning well, like the terms, but saves and clicks. There's other ones like engagement rate, which is essentially is combining close-ups, saves, and link clicks in one. So,
okay. Is impressions just it being scrolled past and that counts? Okay.
Yeah.
And then what counts if they click it, like to expand it? What is that called?
Close-up. That's a close-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Yeah, that makes sense that like link clicks, again, talking about booking clients is like what to pay attention to. And I agree. I love Google
email growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. This is again, like these are some random questions, but I feel like they're important for Pinterest strategy and stuff that I'm like, I want to know the answer to. So hashtags on Pinterest, like, should we be using those? I use them sometimes, but I'm always like, is this right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So Pinterest often introduces features that other platforms are utilizing because they think that people will like understand how to use them on other platforms. Like, for example, they have story pins, but they're really clunky and they don't really make sense. But anyway, that's another side note. But hashtags originally were introduced in 2017. And they said you could use up to 20, but they've changed their mind on this. So my strategy and what I do is the hashtags I use send strong search signals. So for example, for you, a hashtag that I would recommend, and maybe 2 to 3, would be show it, website templates, web design, or branding strategy. Strong search signals of what this content is about. For me, it would be Pinterest tips or female entrepreneurs or marketing tips. I might use a group of 3 of those that is broad and specific. So for you, something broad would be branding strategy, but specific would be show it templates, right? So don't overcomplicate them. If you are location based, I always like to have a little location keyword in there. And that's just what they do. They just send strong search signals. Ideally, what they wanted people to do was click on them, and they were supposed to show up in chronological order that the hashtags were used, but they have taken off their clickable function and removed. They play with them all the time. And I don't think that people are really using them that way on the Pinterest platform.
Yeah. Okay. So you think using them, but just using like 2 to 3 broad and okay. I like that. That's what I've been doing. So that's helpful.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. Let me think. I mean, gosh, we've gone over so many things. This has been helpful for me as well. Are there any, like, what other tips do you have that you want to share?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the content creation. We've talked about the optimization and the keywords. And obviously, it's hard to unpack all those things in a short podcast, but we need to talk about the automating piece, because if this required hours of our work week, people wouldn't use it, right? We already have to do that for Instagram. We're tired of something that requires so much of our time. So let's talk about Tailwind. You use Tailwind, correct?
Yes,
so
I love Tailwind.
Tailwind is a really inexpensive app. It's like $10 a month. And what it is basically allows you to set up a queue, a Pinterest queue. Also, they have an Instagram queue, but a Pinterest queue in advance that will pin at optimal times. And the reason why this is important is when we think back to the beginning of this episode, I have 3 kids. I don't have time to handhold another platform or babysit another platform. So this allows you to set up your queue in advance. It allows you to create a bunch of content and pins at once and to schedule them with intervals, meaning I want this pin to start on Monday every 3 days and in perpetuity, let's say. There's just all different ways that Tailwind allows you to make the whole Pinterest process automatable. And that is super important, I think, for any marketing platform, because our time is limited.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And I'm with you on the scheduling in advance. I try to do, which this is, I'm sure you do way better than me on this. I try to do like a month at a time. But then I'll go and add in as I have new podcast episodes, but like a month of stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think 2 weeks would be the minimum amount I would recommend, just because in case you have a really insane week. But for someone like you or for me, I would go and schedule. Obviously, I would schedule in a month in advance, but then also every week, if you're producing new content, you just need to take a little bit of time to get that new content out onto the Pinterest platform using Tailwind. So that doesn't take that long. So if you do that together, 30 minutes, an hour, a week max should be plenty once you understand the platform and understand the tool. Yeah.
Yeah. And with that too, what times in Tailwind? I know we get to pick like, however many pins a day and times. What would you suggest we do there?
Well, typically Tailwind can read your account and tell you.
Okay.
I would say I almost always see evening being like early evening kind of being the more popular time. But when I look at my Google Analytics, I see all kinds of like, there's a little chart that tells you which colors when people are visiting. I see like generally between Monday and Thursday, kind of in the 4 p.m. area, which makes kind of sense because I think as a business, we're attracting B2B, we're attracting other businesses. It's probably not the thing that you do in the beginning of the day, search on Pinterest, but it could be the thing that you do when your energy is kind of low and you're in the browsing section. But I wouldn't worry about that too much because Tailwind's going to figure that out for you. But if you had to pick a time, I would say between 7 and 9 p.m. just if you had to pick a time.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize they were picking that based on our profiles. That's really cool. Because I know it has evenings for me too, as the times. That's cool. And do you use it for Instagram also, or are you using something else for Instagram?
I use nothing for Instagram. Like I've never really wanted to have like a strong Instagram strategy because I just find it really time consuming to write captions. And that's not to say it's not an important marketing platform. It really is. And I probably could use it more effectively, but I'll use the Tailwind Instagram app when I'm doing live launches. And I have 6 or so that are going to go out every single day, but it is a really robust tool and they do hashtag research for you and it makes it, easy to use, like Planoly and Later. The advantage of it over Planoly and Later is that you can use it with Pinterest as well. And so you can have one stop, like one tool for both those.
Okay. Yeah. I've never tried Tailwind for Instagram, but I use Planoly, but I don't let it auto post. I always manually do it. And I just write posts when I think of them and publish them whenever I feel like it's the right timing. Okay. I love that.
Good
though.
for you.
Yeah. But I get it though. Instagram, I mean, that's another like pro of Pinterest right now that we're talking about of like Instagram writing a good caption is like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Less work though to do what we're talking about for Pinterest once you like know the strategy of like and live on longer.
And just like talking about right now, you might be listening to this 6 months from now. We're in early May of 2020 and coronavirus and all those things like that. But I will say that Pinterest traffic has increased for my clients like minimally 30%, but up to 70 to 80%, just because more people are online. I'm very curious if we will see a shift in that like dramatically this month and June as things open up. But we know the month of April and late March, like nobody was going anywhere. So they were all on Pinterest and I can see that in the data.
Oh, that's cool. That's so interesting to hear. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I've seen my Pinterest numbers go up too. I was looking at my analytics before this, like thinking about it. And I don't look at my analytics enough in Pinterest, but it's showing like 12%, 7.4% up, 22% up, 14% up on all the like different categories right there. So I'm with you on that one. Okay. Oh, and one other thing I want to talk to you about, thinking about Google search engine or just search engine in general, but we all use Google, like our SEO strategy and how Pinterest can play a role in that. One thing I've noticed that I want to throw out here, and I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like for me, my Pinterest boards and pins rank on Google, which is amazing. Like if you search, I want to say it's like show it feminine or life coach show it website templates or something like that. My board that's called that is like the third thing. So like how can we kind of think about meshing the two together to make sure Pinterest helps us on Google too?
Well, first of all, I love that you brought that up because I mean, Google, I always say that Pinterest is queen, but Google is king. So it is important that whatever we're doing in our content marketing, that we're really attracting people on search as well. But a couple of things that you can do, and I have the same experience. Like if you search Pinterest marketing strategy 2020 and 2019, somehow I made it on the first page.
Good
Hallelujah.
job. That's awesome.
Somehow Pinterest loves me, or Google has loved me for that particular search term.
Yeah.
But if you look in the images as well, you'll see many of my pin images, and it's because I'm utilizing alt tags. And so people often forget to add alt tags, or they're not using them properly. They were designed for people with visual impairments. We know that. But when you have like a pin that's like how to use Tailwind, there's really no way to describe it. It's not like a plate of cookies. And so really you can just have a simple alt tag like how to use Tailwind, for example.
Yeah.
And then I put my name, my blog name in there as well. And so a lot of times those will rank that go directly to my website. Conversely too, like you mentioned, when you use strong keyword names in your board names, so avoid cute names like websites I love. Let's put show it templates for female entrepreneurs, like change it to a strong search term. Then when people search for that concept on Google, you're right, they'll see an actual board that ranks, that takes you to Pinterest, and hopefully it's filled with all of your templates that people can click over and go to your website. So this works really well for the wedding industry as well, for like Dallas wedding venues, Nashville wedding venues. So that's why I really recommend that you know your keywords and that you're using them in your board names.
Okay, I love that. So thinking about what you just said with the venues, so you're saying like, let's say I'm a photographer or event planner or florist, so I should still do a board called Nashville Wedding Venues.
Yes, because typically for the wedding industry, and I know that like when we were at, United, a lot of people, most people in the wedding industry, people are typically searching for their venues first, right? And then likely their photographer. Those are the first two pieces that I think people pull together. So you need to think like your bride. Like if she's looking for wedding venues and she doesn't know like the best wedding venue, and you have all these images that you've taken at, I always use Dallas as an example because I grew up there, like the Dallas Arboretum or the White Barn or whatever they happen to be. They see those images of the White Barn and they love it. And they see the image you took and the vision you created. Guess what? They're likely to book you as a photographer because you're familiar with that venue. They know the results they can get. So for sure, you need to have a venue strategy for both SEO and for Pinterest in the wedding industry.
Yeah. Okay. I love you saying that. And I think too, like when I think about when I got married, I wanted to see other people's weddings at the venue. Like just out of curiosity of like what's possible, which led me to Pinterest searching for that venue and then, can find a photographer that way. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
When did you get married out of curiosity?
Oh, in 2015.
When did you get married?
It's been a while.
Did you use Pinterest?
Yeah, I feel like Pinterest was at its earliest though then too a bit.
It was like
Yeah, I definitely had, I think I still have them as like archived boards. I had wedding planning boards.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when Pinterest came out, actually. I think it really was around that time that like it caught on.
2012. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember that it was invite only. And I had all these friends saying like Pinterest and I'm like, pin what? Like, and it was just so new. And I'm like, I want an invite.
Exclusive.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more question for you on this topic. We were just saying about alt tags. I think that's so helpful of like doing that for the Google side too. I'm curious for you on your alt tags. Are you just like writing out, like, let's say it was Dallas wedding photographer, or are you doing like dividers in between each word? And that's so specific.
Well, so on mine, usually it's like how to blah, 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 because typically mine are service-based type blog posts. But I think in general, probably for a wedding photographer or venue, I would probably list the venue name. So let's say the White Barn, and then maybe a divider, Dallas wedding photography, maybe a divider, and then maybe your name. I think that would be an appropriate way to do alt tags. I know that you probably could just say like a bride and groom kissing in front of the chapel. That's probably a good alt tag for describing the image, but not as valuable for search. That makes sense.
That's the thing that's interesting about alt tags is like what you said of what they were originally made for, but then how it works on Google, it's different of how you would type it in, especially if something you're already going to pin anyway. It's a different kind of strategy. Okay. That's so helpful. This has been amazing. I want to ask you before we close out some rapid fire questions that are like kind of unrelated to Pinterest. Some are a little bit. And then I want to know where everyone can find you and follow you and all of that good stuff. So thinking about what you already told everyone of how you have a business and you're homeschooling 3 kids, is there like any piece of advice or encouragement you could leave us about like how you're managing it? I know it's like a loaded question, but thought on that.
No, okay. So I live by having a paper planner and I have batch days. So here's what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And for the most part, I mean, occasionally there's a client call or a podcast episode. For the most part, I have the same things that I do every single week. Or every single day of the week. And so that's really important to me. And I like write it out and I check it off because there's so many distractions with small children. And I just think it's really important to hone in on that. So that's probably my main thing. And I'm very niche down. So I'm not trying to do a million different things. I would also add too that, and I mean, I think that you can be a mom and have a big business and be a big CEO and have a huge team, but it has been my personal choice to say, what do I need in my business? And if I can meet that, like I'm thrilled with that. And occasionally it's more than that, and that's great. But I really focus on like, what do I need from my business? Because I want to make sure I have enough energy, specifically is what we're talking about, left over to be with the girls and make choices that are good for our family. I think people need to hear that sometimes because there's always more money to make, but you know, your kids are little once. And so you have to decide what you need and what's important to you.
I love that. That's such good advice. You were able to say that fast too. Okay. Another question. Can you recommend a favorite book that we should all read? A business book or otherwise even?
Yeah. So I love Essentialism by George McEwen. And it again talks about like the main things that you need to do and that to kind of cut out the fluff and just to really get focused on what you do. And it's going to talk about niching and specifically that, but like what is essential to running your business? What is profitable and focus on what is profitable too.
I need to read that. You're like the 5th person that's mentioned that book to me recently. So I need to read that. Okay. What's some tools, 1 tool, 3 tools, however many random tools in your business that you use like every day or every week that we need to check out?
So I'm not like really great at like tech tools, but obviously in Tailwind and Google Analytics, but I also love Wave for bookkeeping. I used to use like a spreadsheet and it was really annoying. And I personally really enjoy bookkeeping. I know some people hate it, but Wave has been really functional. My favorite thing is looking at reports because you can kind of look and see like expenses and revenue and then like the final number. And I just like checking in on that and kind of seeing how things are going. So Wave, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll link to those. Yeah. I used to use Wave. I need to check it out again. I used to use it for invoicing when I first started my business. That's why I suggest to people as a free invoicing tool.
Yeah. I use it for, most of my clients are on like my CRM, but I have a few that I use it for and it's perfectly fine. Yeah. It works. Yeah.
Okay. And then last question, what's a like go-to recipe you really love that like your 3 daughters and husband, everyone really likes from home?
Going back to that question about juggling with kids, I picked up this random issue of Magnolia and Joanna Gaines was talking about like someone was asking her how you juggle kids and working. And she said she keeps dinners really simple, which I think surprised me a little bit because we think she's making all these fantastic recipes and cupcakes all the time. But I keep things really simple. And my husband is okay with this. So we keep things simple in the meal area of our life and very repeatable. So I often make homemade pizza. And so my grandmother actually grew up in Rome and she's Roman and she would always make homemade pizza. And so I just really mastered my pizza dough and it's inexpensive and the recipe it's most similar to is the New York Times pizza dough. I forget the guy's name. And you can make it in advance. It's freezable. There's so many different ways you can use it. And my kids love it. And it's filling and it's just fun to make. So homemade pizza.
I love that. And I'll get that link from you and put it in the show notes. Yeah, we love making homemade pizza too. So that's amazing. Okay, Vanessa, this has been so great. Will you tell everyone where they can find you? I know you blog a lot and are on even other podcasts doing all the amazing things. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find my website, Vanessa Kynes, that's KYNES.com. You can pick up my free Pinterest startup guide. You can take my course. You can get templates, all kinds of things going on there. I do guest podcasts. I'm occasionally on Instagram, not as much these days. And if you see my Instagram, it's typically just fun stuff with the kids, which, you know, we all kind of need a break. I have a YouTube channel as well that I do a lot of tutorials, but you can find those even on the blog as well. I embed those videos. Okay. So that's primarily where I'm hanging out online.
Yeah. And I'll link to that Pinterest starter guide in the show notes because I have that. I downloaded it, I guess like a week ago or so. It's really helpful. So I'll link to that for everyone. And yes, follow you on Instagram. I love following you on Instagram with the family stuff. I feel like you inspire me so much, like as a mother. So I could have interviewed you about that, honestly, but this is your thing. So thank you so much for coming, Vanessa, on the show.
I really appreciate it. I had so much fun. And it sounds like, too, Elizabeth has a lot of wisdom on Pinterest and other episodes. So just dive into it and see what it can do for your business.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.